it's a great honor to talk after Ziv, great leader in our space, and actually great company. I'll even touch on that in some of my slides. Actually, it's interesting because all the presentation, probably at the end of the day, you'll see them linking to each other. And I picked this topic about hiring the CSM because this is the only one left. Kidding. Guys, relax. Cheer up. I picked this topic about hiring a CSM and about the human asset because, as the introduction says, I really believe it's the top, if not the second, after the product, obviously, for the success of a company. And to be honest with you, with a great team, you can leave probably in doing great, even if the product is mediocre. With a great product, with not a very successful team, you're doomed to fail. Okay, so take that into consideration. So we'll talk about how to try to hire the best CSM and why we need to hire the best CSM. And how do you flip here? Okay, because if you're not hiring the best CSM and you have a team member that is not strong, then guess what? Everybody knows this rule about the chain. Your chain is as strong, or if you can convert that to a team, it's as strong as your weakest link. True, true, true. Guys, the resume that probably some of you heard that she was reading, it's here not just to pat on my back a little bit, but also to let you know that everything you hear today is based on very great success that I had in my future, at least twice, but also, guess what, failures. And when you kind of combine them together, they all lead to the things you'll hear today. Some of them may sound to you obvious, but remember, there was reading with blood. It's so cool. Okay, so we need great CSM team. Some of you are probably familiar with the Maslow hierarchy of needs. So I try to convert to put together the Yossi Pyramid for hiring or kind of maintaining a successful team. By the way, it doesn't have to be necessarily CSM team. You can share this with your salespeople after that, any team. And it's key because we're going to talk about some of the slides a bit about how to hire the good people, right? The best people. But if you don't have those other layers, and I won't talk about the tools, and actually Ziv with a great experience that he has, he did share his experience. I'll talk about the other two layers, leadership a bit and culture a bit, because if you get the right people and you don't have one of those two other tiers, they will be gone. And guess who will stay? The one that you don't want. So we'll start with the leadership. Okay. Leadership. At the end of the day, each one of you that is a manager, by the way, use those slides about leadership and culture also to kind of do sanity check for yourself, part of the organization that you are right now. Okay, I'm not encouraging any churn in your company, but it's a good sanity check for you to know that if you're in the right place, in a good place or not. So leadership, any manager, and it doesn't have to be executive level, right? Any manager, and think about it from as an employee. That's what you look from the level above you to kind of help you when there is a struggle, open bottlenecks, right? Help you to remove obstacles, and they're always there. And no matter what level you are, right? You can be a SVP, executive, C level. There's another C above you. By the way, CEO is the same sometimes with his board, right? The board of directors is another manager for a CEO. They're looking for the same. Remove obstacles and open bottlenecks for me. The other things that speaks loud when you talk about leadership is people, your people want to understand that you bring value to them, okay? And how you do that, they need to feel that you're adding some value to them on the day-to-day. It doesn't have to be, by the way, product level. It can be processes. It can be experience from other areas. But bring value to them. At the end of the day, they need to know that you bring value and you help them when they needed you. The next thing is crucial. Build the trust. By the way, again, I'm telling you up front. I know that I'm saying things that are obvious, so-called. They are key. Build the trust. And how do you build the trust? It's not I'm saying I'm trustful. You do that by Every action that you do, people are watching. It's like kids. There's a lot of similarity, by the way, between managing and parenthood, for those of you that are parents here in the room. A lot. This is one of them. Provide clear guide. When you provide what you think clear guidance, stick to them. If they keep changing, if you keep changing the guidelines, that's where you start to lose trust. Leading by example, we spoke about the action speaks louder than words. You know that phrase? It's true. You do not talk, you don't ask something that you don't religiously do. And for example, if you're talking about implementing new CRM system for ticketing, if you are the VP or the head of this group, but you're not using this tool or using it once in a while, it's gone. You will not be able to implement that. You need literally to be, when I say religious, you need to be a leader in everything that you ask for. Again, think kids, they mimic the way you act. Think about it. You're sitting in dinner and you're telling the kids, don't use cell phone. And you use it as well, but yourself, you're using it. Won't work. Be rich in feedback. I think many managers fail here. Oh, we're dealing with grown-ups, they don't need feedback. Guess what? We're all kids. People like to hear where they stand, how they do, feel appreciated. Because if you don't provide them that information, guess what? They lean to fill the gap by their own. And sometimes it can be negative. So in any interaction, small world. I mean, send an email, say, great thing, good summary. Things like that give the person the feedback that he needs. It doesn't have to be big things. Obviously, you can do also big things, raises and all of that, but even with small interaction. And, which works only with good players, I'm telling you, point them for where they need to improve and set the bar a bit higher. Anyone who practice even once in their life, like jumping over a bar, you know, if you raise it too high, they will fail. If you raise it quite a bit, that you believe they can achieve it, it will work well. And challenge. Employee hates the micromanagement, at least that's what they say. On the flip side, there's no way around that. As a good manager, you do need sometimes to micromanage and sometimes to obviously to take a broader aspect. Do it based on the employee. I always tell people in my team, if you sense that it's micromanaging, it's a bad sign for you. So you pick when to do it and with whom, and you always also pick the occasion. That's what I called here. I promise it's the only Hebrew one. Mikum Mafaked. Decide when you want to be in the trenches because it's a very either sensitive occasion, whatever the reason is, or the person is not the right one, then be in the trenches. But if it's not required, take a step back. Actually, when you're taking a step back, that's another thing that a lot of growing companies managers, they don't know to step back and actually mobilize the troop. It's an ability by itself. Mobilize the troop. When you're stepping back, you can mobilize in a bigger way other troops. So do the breathing between micro and macro as needed. Okay, people. We're getting to the actual to the team. So starting with the team, not necessarily even CSM team. I love this phrase. It's from a book called From Good to Great. Highly recommended, by the way. And he's starting with pretty much his chapter 1 is how to get the right people on the bus. The idea is when you have the right people on the bus, before you even decide where to drive, how far to drive, have the right people. Once you have them, you can drive not just where, you can drive the further. So, what is the right people? Okay? So there's no right or wrong. I think every person, organization probably has its own. I'm going to share in the next few minutes the Yossi philosophy about the right. And I think it talks to what Ziv mentioned, which is, you'll see it's more on the people skills, the soft skills, what's so called, because I think those are the key. The rest can be taught. Those skills that we're going to talk about them, it's the personality. You rarely can change them. Okay, I'll do quickly some of them. Honest, trustful, I think it's given. You want people that you can trust. Positive, pleasant, and cheerful. I'm not talking about just, happy, but you see it's also related to our professor, which is the CSM. You need people with a positive thinking. You see later on the next slide, we'll talk about CSM traits that we need. You have to have people with a positive thinking because otherwise they cannot help the customer go over obstacles. And in general, you need a positive culture in the company, in the team. Team player, it's given. The next one is key. And I'm telling you that when I do screening and interviews, I touch on that, trying to touch on that. Not a lot of people, and each and every one of you can look into himself and think if he's okay with that or not, are ready to say, I was wrong. Admit either failure, admit a mistake. The team, that it's an A+ kind of team members and a team, is a team, the people that can admit that. Try to identify that traits in someone that you hire, and it goes hand in hand with the next one. Okay, if they are open to criticism, if they're open to kind of see what is required from them to improve and are able to improve. I tell you, those two are key. Not many people has it. Some right here that the most important things in their life is the success, the company, the work. Some call it workaholic, some call it other names, but you want to have people that the company, the work is a first goal or equal to family, so-called, in their life. They don't drop the pen when it's required. They will rather call the wife and say, we have a crisis here, I'm staying late. Again, I'm not encouraging that to pick a spouse like that, right? But when you're picking your team member, try to look for those crazy people. Okay, so now let's zoom in. What person we're trying to look for when we do talk about CSM, because the previous slide was talking about team members in general. So with the CSM, here's the challenge, and I think Lincoln talked about it a bit. In our industry, depends on the size of the company, CSM role can be one of those 4 pillars, right? We mix them sometimes. I mean, it's a given size or matureness of the company. So you have support, you have onboarding, you have account management, which we rather call it success, and you have the sales part of it, renewal, expansion. Okay? Very challenging if you're talking about small company and you're trying to find one that can do all. Challenging. Failed with that once. Okay? So now the key, again, if you're in a big company, you already have those as teams, which, by the way, success teams evolve. Even if they start like that in the startup days, they will evolve to 2, 3 at least different teams based on those categories. But if you're starting small and you need to kind of pick the right person, try to identify between analyze in what stage the company is, analyze the strengths of the other team, analyze the strengths of the people that are already on board. Okay? And try to find what is missing. For example, if expansion and renewals are done by the AE team at this point in the life of the company, and it's done well, leave it. I know that Lincoln and even, Lincoln and Ziv argue about it, but thinks that it should be part of the CSM. You will have time to deal with that. So focus on the need first, based on the current capabilities with other teams, and based on the talent that you have in your team. Speaking about talent in general, I call it always the Swiss knife approach, or the blade approach, which means is you have different capabilities, different talent in the team. Use the right blade for the task. Okay? It's always key to identify what you have in the team, and when you hire the missing blade. Because at the end of the day, especially with a small team, they need to be capable to cater to at least 2 or 3 of the challenges that customer success needs to deal with. And now we're getting to what I suggest to look for when we're hiring a CSM. Remember, the previous slide spoke about team members in general. I'm not saying that they're less important than this one. It's a combination of the two, obviously. So when you're hiring a CSM, he or she should be, and again, some of them probably are obvious, looks obvious. Okay, running out of time. So proactive approach, strategic thinking, all of that are key. Empathy with the customer, understanding the customer. Those are the traits that you need there. It's different when you think about it from the support nature. Okay. We're running a little bit out of time, so I quickly will talk to try to use the following tricks, as I call it, to kind of screen the right candidates. Internal referral, by the way, are good as long as it's someone that worked with. Don't go just for internal referral because it's a friend and or someone is trying to get the bonus, right? Check for someone that can give you a reference based on working with someone. Actually ask them if they would like to work with this guy again. In terms of how to screen, do all of this, try all of those. Role play, key. Mimic a customer, let him or he deal with the situation during that. Stand up, have them present, because we want to see the verbal capabilities. And chat simulation if you're dealing with support. And identify people in the organization, not necessarily that your team, that has this talent to pick the right people. In every company, there is one like that. Even if they're not in your team, get them for your hiring process. It's huge. And last but not least, there's I'll stop. There's a lot of oh, it's scary. You can get a lot with interaction with candidates from in and out the interview, coffee machine, all the way to the way they interact with emails with you. Gain that information. It gives you actually the real view into the personality. I guess we'll deal, I'll say one thing about culture. Oops. It's blocky when you're done? Okay. Culture, I put everything here. You see, by the way, if you deal with leadership and the right people, the culture comes by itself. But I'll say one thing about culture. Managers, leave the culture that you wanted to pursue. It's not bullet on the website or the vision of the company or things of that nature. You actually act it, you live it, it will resonate well with the team. And last screen about picking global, expand to global. I think the key one is to identify cultural barriers when they get into a different region. For example, know that in India when they do this, it's not necessarily no, it's yes. Japanese talk legs. I mean, try to identify that. And also, if you can get an ex-Israeli or someone that worked with Israeli companies, it's a big plus. Hire them to be part of the local team. And remember, to keep, always remote team will think that they're inferior because they're far from headquarters. Continuously invest time to remove that fear, because it's true, by the way, if you don't manage it well. Remove that fear in their mind if you want to get them part of your story. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll be here around if you want to talk about question after that.
Thank you, Yossi. Thank you.